If I have, hello again. Before you'll see a handy map with little pins in it that let you know where the practices are that we work with around the country. The red pins are those that we work with practice management services in one state or another, and the yellow are those practices that are attending today's class. If you registered in the last 12 hours or so, that may not be accurate for you, but it should be a pretty good representation to give you an idea where everybody's sitting today. I'm going to ask you all to say hello. I want to make sure that your microphones are working properly and have you just check in and share with everybody your name and what your position is in the practice so that people can get an idea for who else is on the call that may be sitting in a similar, working in a similar capacity in the practice that they're in. So if you need to reach out to one another or you want to follow up with somebody, you'll have an idea who may be able to help you in your line of work. So I'm going to compare my list here of who we have registered with who is here, and then I'll give you a quick hello. Brittany, can you say hi and share with us where you are and what your position is in the practice?
Hi, I'm Brittany, and I'm a case manager down here in Dunedin, Florida.
Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you.
We have two Carlas on the phone, so I'm going to say hi to Carla in Southfield.
Hi, Brandy. How are you?
Good. Hi.
My name is Carla. I'm the administrative assistant here in Southfield, and I also have Jennifer Matthews here with us. I'm going to allow her to say hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm the administrative assistant in the New Troy office.
Welcome. Welcome to the Collaborative Learning Series and to the team. And my other Carla, I don't think Carla in Florida. Carla, I think you're in Florida. I don't think you've entered your audio pin, so I'll say hi for you. And if you enter it, I'll come back to you. Ellen, can you say hi to everybody?
Hello, my name is Ellen, and I am the operations manager for the team practice that I work for.
And where are you located, Miss Ellen?
Oh, I'm sorry, Troy, Michigan.
Thank you.
I'm multitasking, sorry.
Oh, well, at least you admit it. Thanks, Elle. Heidi.
Hello, my name is Heidi Wampler, and I am an administrative assistant to Ryan Romines, and our practice is in San Rafael, California. We're probably about 30 minutes outside of San Francisco.
Perfect. Heidi, I see you're in here twice. Does that mean someone else in the office is in with your name?
Probably. I'm working remotely from home, so depending on how they log in.
Other microphone and see if they say hello. Thanks.
Okay. It's probably Megan.
Megan, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Megan. Can you share with everybody where you are and what you do?
Hello, my name is Megan Biagini, and I'm also assistant to Ryan Romines here in San Rafael, California.
Welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Ida, you and I haven't had much of a chance to talk. Will you say hi to everybody? You might have yourself muted on your end.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Hi, Ida.
Oh, hi. My name is Ida Giron. I'm the client service manager here in El Segundo, California.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Kelly in Texas.
I'm Kelly Elbrock. I work out of the Fredericksburg, Texas office for Bridge North Wealth Advisors. I'm in financial planning and business processing assistant.
Thanks, Kelly. Welcome. Hi, Marlo.
Hi, Brandy. How are you?
Well, thanks. Can you say hi to everyone? Let them know where you are and what you do.
Yep. This is Marlo Russell, and I'm a client service manager for Jeff Wallace in Port Huron, Michigan.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Stacy, I'm going to introduce you in just a moment. And that's everybody that's joined us so far. If anybody else pops in, I'll try to let them have a chance to say hello. My slideshow is being difficult today. There's Stacy. Stacy, it's your turn to say hello. She comes to us from Cornerstone Financial Group in Southfield, Michigan.
Hello.
It's a pretty unique practice, large, 8 advisors and 5 staff. Can you share with them a little bit about your role?
My role is business processing. I process the paperwork and I follow up on it mostly.
Thank you. Stacy comes from a very, I said it's a unique practice, it's large. But it's unique for a couple of reasons. Not only are there a lot of advisors and a lot of staff members, they have 2 locations that they service from primarily, and they also have a tendency toward pretty dynamic growth. So Stacy will touch on a little bit later how the business processing tool really helps manage that dynamic growth, and that happens both through bringing on new advisors and also bringing on new clients en masse. So she's got some unique perspective from that side of things. What are we trying to accomplish today? What do I want you to get from this class? I want to make sure that I give you a greater understanding of the advantages, provide to you or reiterate the best practices of the tool for those of you who are newer to it. Some of this may be brand new learning. For those of you who've been here a while and you're well practiced at using this, I hope to give you a couple tips and tricks that will help you maximize your use of it and get a little bit more out of the day-to-day functioning inside of Connect. Primarily with business processing, but some of the tips that you're going to catch will apply across the board to other tools too. And finally, I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for collaboration between all of you regarding the fine-tuning and the smaller pieces and some of the tips and tricks that you've picked up or questions you may have about how someone else is handling a particular challenge as it relates to this tool. So what is the business processing tracker? We would describe it as a collaborative task management tracker inside Connect, which hosts a suite of tools. It organizes and keeps track of tasks to be completed. And it was originally designed with kind of a limited purpose to simply track the money moving around in a practice. But we quickly learned that there's so much more that really needs to be followed in a busy practice to ensure that client promises are being met. It's not just the money moves, but lots of other things, and we want to be sure that none of those ever slip through the cracks. So this ensures that those tasks are never missed or overlooked and helps define the next step date or a priority order for getting things done so that you can put them in the right order as you prioritize your day. So why is it so important? It helps ensure that you fulfill all those promises made to clients on time, every time. It'll allow you some transparency in getting things done so everybody in the team knows where a task stands. The advisor has the ability to look at where things are without having to search around and find your progress, or determine where your notes might be, and facilitate clear communication if you've got questions or need to pass something back off to someone else on the team. And generally helps keep the business running smoothly. So I want to ask you a question. We've got a poll here. I'm going to pop that up on your screen in just a moment. On a scale of 1 to 5, how valuable is the business processing to your practice? Some of you may not know that question, but try to give it a go here. Well, I'm going to take an average and see why. I'll give you just another minute here to vote. Counting about half of you. All right. Beautiful. Let me share that with you. You should be able to see the results now. 90% of you gave it a 5, so the utmost importance and looks like one of you said a 4, which is pretty darn important, and that may be that there are other things, other factors that go into your decision making, or you may not be as involved in this tracker as some of the others. I would like to ask you by a show of hands, if you'll raise your hand in that little feature here, if somebody would like to speak to why that's so important to you. What is it to you, particularly in your role, or to the practice in general? Anybody speak to that? Heidi? Oh, excuse me, that's Megan.
No, it's me.
Oh, it's
Which
Heidi.
one?
You. Heidi.
So as you well know, I am currently working on moving completely to working remotely from home. So the BPT is great because I am not in the office. I don't necessarily see the physical paperwork that comes in. I don't even see the people. So this way I can go into the BPT and I can see what has happened, what needs to be done, what the next steps are. And I'm going to be in a different time zone than my coworkers in the office. So it just puts it in more real time for me because I can see what they've done and then what my next steps are.
That's fantastic. That's a challenge that a couple of practices face with multiple locations, but working remotely makes that even more important. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share? Why is it so important in your practice? Marlo, I'm gonna reach to you. I know that you you don't have a large team to communicate with. So how does business processing really help you get your arms around what's going on? You might be muted on your side, Marlo.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brandy. I didn't hear you say my name. I guess for me, I like it because it's kind of like set it and forget it. So I know if I put it on BP, then it's not on my mind basically until it needs to be again. So I'm not looking at things over and over when I don't need to. If I follow up on it, I set it out for a few days, and then I can forget about it until I need to look at it again.
Perfect. And you don't have to rely on your memory to figure out what's on your plate.
Right, because that might not be good. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, can you provide some additional comments there?
I think that it keeps each of us on task, and we've found a huge amount of accountability through using the BPTs. Like, we know where things are, and we really hold each other accountable for what's going on, and we'll review these in our weekly recaps just to make sure the advisors are checking their BPTs and getting tasks done, and that everybody's on track. So we use it for a huge amount of accountability in our office because we are a big practice and bigger practice, and we have 3 office locations. And anyway, so accountability for us is huge on BPTs.
Awesome. Thank you. So those are all really good reasons for value in business process tracking. I want to share with you a little bit about how Stacy uses it, and then we'll talk about some best practices next. Oh, come on. Okay. Oh, that's the wrong direction. So I talked to Stacy a little bit as we were getting ready to put things together for today, and I asked her what she likes about it. And on the screen in front of you are some of the reasons that she stated. But Stacy, I'm going to let you speak to these in your own words. I've just kind of summarized them, but it'll be a bit more meaningful if you can share with us why it's so important to you in your practice.
Well, as you said before, our practice is a bit different. We have 8 advisors, and several of them are in different locations or out of different offices. Some of the staff also works out of the office from time to time. So it's very efficient for us just to keep all notes for any particular task in one area, as opposed to putting sticky notes all over your desk. Anywhere you take this computer or have a computer access, you have all of the notes for any particular task, and that is very helpful for us. The system itself has been very reliable. We've never had any problems with the software itself, so it's always running, and it's always reliable for us. Easy to prioritize. As long as you put the particular date that you need follow-up, it's very easy to prioritize your tasks. And also, you never lose a task if you prioritize it according to the date that you need to follow up on. And that could be even years in the future. So I don't know how many times you've come across something in business processing where an advisor will tell you, you know, in 2 years we need to get the RMD going for this person. I know there's an RMD tracker, but this is also an efficient way of having that pop up for that meeting when that person finally turns old enough to take their RMD. So just little things like that. It's very helpful.
You mentioned that you can't imagine, I think the words used were, I can't imagine the transitions we've experienced in this practice without this tool. With bringing on new advisors and bringing on new client books, there is a lot of juggling that occurs when one of those transitions happens. And you said that this has been a really useful tool in making sure you don't miss anything. Is there anything more you'd care to share there?
Exactly. Well, that goes back to having the advisors, you know, all being in a different location and having one central place to look for the information. So
very handy.
Yes.
Thank you. So I asked Stacy how she uses the fields, because we see in the practices we work with, there's a little bit of variation. We have best practice recommendations, and I'm going to share this with you in a minute, for each field. But everyone develops their own functionality for those over time that makes it best for their practice. So I asked her that question, how do you use them? And these are just a few of her answers. I don't want to go through every piece with you. But she was saying she uses the description as a category. That description field, that's the shorter field that's earlier in the form, as a way to kind of group tasks into the type of task that they are. It's like a planning related task or a beneficiary change or a money move of some kind, which is exactly what we recommend. She also mentioned using the follow-up date as a next action date. And Stacey, you were saying you use that to prioritize tasks. So we've had some feedback from teams saying, I wish there was a priority column in this tool. And we share with them practices like yours, that if you're setting that date correctly, today's tasks should be right at the top of the list, so you don't need an additional priority. Spot on with your comment there. I asked you about the account number field, and you said you use that, but sometimes it's included in the description field because there's maybe more than one account number, or there's just more information that's necessary, so the account field doesn't get used, it gets included somewhere else. But I also noted that you're very good about being sure that you don't have complete numbers. We always recommend, and it's compliant, to only have the last 4 digits. So just a quick reminder there. And Stacey, you were saying that the due date, how it gets entered, is dependent on if there's a drop dead date or if they want to allow you to prioritize. Can you share with everybody how that works?
Sure. Well, if it's a very important task that needs to be taken care of right away, if you don't put a date in there, it will drop, or it will not drop. It will go to the top of your task list. And also, if you want to prioritize your tasks for a specific day, you can enter past dates in there. You know, if you come across, or you come in one day and you have like 15 tasks for one day, and you're like, well, I don't want to do this one till the end of the day, you can put in dates prior to today's date to prioritize even those 15 tasks that you have to do today. So it helps to not only prioritize daily tasks, but even timely tasks.
I would just remind everybody, if you do that when you're prioritizing in the morning, be sure in your day that you reprioritize so the rest of your team knows when you're going to get to those, so it doesn't look like something that's past due when you end your day. That's definitely a useful feature. what I was getting at too, though, is you were saying that the advisors they'll enter a follow-up date for you if they have a cutoff date. Is that right? And if not, they leave it blank and let you prioritize?
Well, if they know that something needs to be taken care of on Friday, they'll give me the Friday date, and I'll do it that day. But if there's no particular time that they need it done, they'll leave it blank for me to assign a date for it and prioritize it in my own day-to-day. So
That's helpful, especially with the number of tasks that come your way.
yes.
Good process there. You had some great tips for others. I asked you, what would you want somebody who's new to the tool or who may not have all the information to know? Would you like to share those with the group?
Sure. I am an extremely thorough person. I like as much detail as possible, so I like to probably over-detail things. So when I go back to it in a week, I know exactly what happened and where I'm at with things. So that is very helpful. BPT to capture future tasks. Again, that goes back to if an advisor tells you he needs to do something in 2 years, you can put it on there and not have to worry about it, put it anywhere else. It's going to pop up in 2 years. Place notes into contact manager if task is completed in the moment. If there needs to be any follow-up, multi-step, place in BPT. This, you will, well, I tend to start a process in BPT, and things can go back and forth for weeks and weeks. You can contact the client several times. I document all of that in BPT, and then once the task is complete, we'll copy all of those notes to contact manager for our, our everlasting record, I guess you would want to say. So, I don't tend to put all of my notes in contact manager. I like to keep it on BPT and then copy it over.
Right. The last
Open
piece.
the,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just reading the last one. Open the item you intend to edit. I always open it. I am not very good at just hitting the edit button and working in that edit page. I don't know tips and tricks of that. I guess that's probably more techie, but I like to open the entry.
What you shared with me was that you worry about deleting, so that a good tip would be to go directly into it so that there's less risk of that. That quick edit view, I think probably very early on we taught you to kind of avoid that if you could, because there's more risk of typing over a field and losing information than if you open the item you intend to edit. Writing on the wrong client line or writing over notes by accident. So that's a great tip when you're working in business processing. Opening just the item you intend to edit so you can capture the notes in the right place is a good method. And Stacy, I wanted to give you some kudos. Way to go, Stacy. You and your team do a good job of making full use of the text features in the business processing. I don't know if everybody knows this, so this may be the little nugget that you get from today's class. You can highlight sections of text, changing the color, highlighting them in yellow or orange. You can change the actual text color, so you can use, maybe one person on your team gets red, another gets purple, another gets green, so you can show who's writing back and forth if you're collaborating with a team member. You can change font size, alignment, use underline, bold. You can strike through to show pieces of a multi-step that have been completed in a very visual way. And you can even add bullets. There's tons of great tools in this little tiny menu. And Stacy, I noticed that quite a lot of your entries had some combination of these different features to help highlight items of importance or define who's left a particular note, maybe clearly delineate the pieces of the larger tasks that have a particular order or may already be complete.
Yes, we like to use these a lot.
What's that?
We use these a lot because, like I said, some of our entries do get quite long and you can get confused and lost in them. So, yeah, we use these a lot.
So for those of you who haven't explored this feature, check it out when you're editing the item. If you click in the details section, that's the section that you can really edit and play with the text features. When you click inside that box at the item level, this appears in the little top menu, and you're able to highlight, and just like you would in any Microsoft program, highlight the text you want to affect and click the button, and you can make changes. So I suspect there may be some more colorful business processing items occurring in the next couple of weeks. I encourage you to check it out. But way to go, Stacy. That's great to see. I believe, I won't unmute you for this, but I believe our Texas practice that's joining us today utilizes this too. So let me share with you some best practices. Let's see, are you using it? Are you using business processing effectively and completely? Are there things that you could add that maybe you haven't yet? You all know that business processing collects a great deal of useful information to keep your team informed on progress, to prompt meaningful and timely follow-up, but not all fields apply to all items. So it can be a little bit intimidating when you go look at it to think, I've got to fill in all these fields. Well, you don't. You just need to fill in those that apply to maximize your benefit. So for those of you that are newer to the tool, and as a reminder for our longtime users, I'm just going to walk you quickly through the fields available to you and give you a little piece of information about each of them to help you make the most of it. The entry date, which is the column on the very first one, first entry field, pre-populates. That's there and visible for a very good reason. We want you to be able to see how long a task has been there on the tool. Now we all know that it timestamps when it's created, so if you open it up, you can see that. But we want that visible on the main views in Connect, so you can at a glance see if a task has been there for a very long time and get to the bottom of why. Maybe it's supposed to have been, but in many times we can sort that field and catch things that may have inadvertently been rolling. The client field, of course, last name, first name. As a best practice, we recommend you enter last name, first initial. Practically speaking, in the larger practices, that can be a little bit more challenging. It may not be possible. That is our best practice recommendation there. The advisor field populates from the members list. That's the list of all your team members there in Connect. You simply select the advisor with which the client is aligned, who is the servicing advisor that's prompting the task, particularly if you have multiple advisors who meet with clients or the same client. For those of you that just have one advisor in the team, you may choose not to use that field since it's kind of obvious who the advisor is. Others prefer to use it just to have things uniform. As I mentioned before, the description category, or just rather description field, should be used as a category. Many practices actually adopt a list of 10 or 15 types of tasks to try to stick to that in order to categorize tasks and allow for easier sorting. It's a filterable field, so you can actually filter for a particular type of task to focus your time. For example, if you're tracking some planning pieces in here and you're working on a planning block of time in your model week, you can filter first for yourself as a follow-up person, and secondly, the description field for planning tasks, and really narrow your view so you're not cluttered by the things that don't apply to what you're trying to get accomplished at the moment. Some examples of categories that may be included there might be estate settlements, money movements, next meeting agenda items, rollovers, etc. The account number field I mentioned, to be compliant, you should never enter more than the last 4 digits of the account number. You may use the check digit and admin code, but no more than the last 4 of the 8-digit account number. There are very few clients who have more than one account with the same last 4. To be clear, this isn't the only place that you shouldn't enter a whole account number. Don't do that anywhere in Connect, just to be on the compliance side of things. Home Office is perfectly comfortable with Connect. They've just asked us to be very careful about that piece of information. The amount field is one that is not always used to the advantage of the practices. Don't forget, when there's a dollar amount that applies to a task, this is a good place to keep it. In many practices, this really helps you focus on where the money is moving and may also be part of your prioritization. If there are multiple moves going on for the same client, having a dollar amount that's readily available and not buried in the notes can make it easier to sort out which task you're working on too. The sent to field is also one that gets a little bit neglected in some practices. It's a drop down with relevant choices. Those choices are advisor, client, home office, other, or third party, which allows you to demonstrate and keep track of where business is in its process. That field won't likely stay the same if things need to move around, if it needs to go to the advisor and to home office and then back to the client to get the various pieces going. This is particularly helpful in larger tasks with multiple steps, like maybe an insurance sale, to keep track of where we are in the process without having to read through a lot of notes. The date processed is where the date that the business went to the home office or other location should be entered. When did it initially leave your hands? That's not necessarily the day that you enter the task into the tracking tool. You may be informed of a task that started a couple days ago by an advisor and something went up to home office then, but you're now learning about it. So the entry date won't match, which is why we do encourage you to put the date it was processed so you have realistic expectations about when your next step should take place. The follow-up date. We commonly refer to that as a next action date. Always think of it that way, not a due date. When do I need to take the next step, or when do I need the next person in the line of operations to take that next step? That really is where your primary priority gets set. So when you're using the tool correctly, as Stacy pointed out, the follow-up date drives that priority and keeps the top priority tasks at the top of the list. If there is no date entered, the tool sees it as a mistake and puts it at the top, which is where Stacy is able to triage the things that pop in from the advisors she's supporting, and she can go in and prioritize those accordingly as they pop to the top for her. That helps create some transparency both in priority and workload to let people know, do you have 47 tasks that are due today? Maybe if I've got a little bit of extra time, I could reach out and help you. Follow-up person is, of course, who's responsible for the next step. You simply select the person appropriate from the drop-down. That's also populated from the same members list that the advisor is. And the details section. This can get pretty lengthy in some practices, or it can be very abbreviated. And this is really where a lot of preference takes effect in a practice, the language, the abbreviations that you may choose or choose not to use. Some practices like to put their initials on the front end with a date. I know Heidi, your practice does a lot of that. You're very good about labeling the date and who is making the note as you pass tasks back and forth, and that's been very useful for you. Others tend to use initials at the end or color codes or some other formatting that helps keep everyone on the same page. Feel free to evolve that system for your practice and just be sure everybody's using it consistently. The owner of the business processing tracker should be the one who's monitoring that usage to make sure that it's consistent. Just a quick reminder, Stacy touched on this a moment ago, Contact Manager is absolutely your documentation connect, and the BPT are for task management. Home Office is going to look to Contact Manager and your other documentation locations for the supporting information about your progress. And the last field is the BPT status, or Business Processing Tracking Status. Here you select from a drop-down, and the choices are Advisor Action Required, which is another way to flag an item set aside for the advisor aside from the follow-up person. Pending Client Information. Insurance is a great example, or when forms are returned to a client for signing, things may go back to the client's plate for a while. In Process, that's, of course, anything that's mid-process. And Completed. Never mark an item completed until there are no more steps to complete for the task. It's tempting to mark things done as you complete your steps, but remember there may be someone who has another step after yours. So be sure to reassign to the follow-up person and let the last person in the task line be the one to complete the item in the tracker. Those are the top 4. If you've been in BPT very much, you know there are 2 more below it, comp received and no comp. These are used when your practice elects to compare the advisor compensation statement to the BPT. If your team would like to know more about this option or explore it a little bit, or you just want to have a little bit more understanding how that's possible, let us know that either through the survey or shoot me a quick email, and I'll be sure that the appropriate team member on our side gets with you to help you get started with that process. Now I'm going to come to you for some information. You've heard our best practices. You've heard how Stacy's using it. Let me ask you, are any of you doing anything very different from what you've heard today? Raise your hand if that's the case. Or perhaps something additional that you'd like to share, or a question that you might have based on what I've shared with you so far. No hands. That's a good sign. That means everybody's doing it right. Silence is good here, right? So let me try another question. For those of you, and this may be more for those of you that are newer with the service, but it may take you back a ways if you were with the practice when KMG first came in to help. If you've transitioned from another form of task tracking, how has BPT improved your experience there? Can I ask any of you to share that? Maybe, Ida, I know you're a little bit new. Can you see that at all? I'm sorry, Ida, did you hear me say your name? I know sometimes it cuts the name off on the front.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I thought maybe I lost you there. I know you're a little bit newer to the KMG system. Can you speak to how this transition to business processing has helped task tracking for you?
It's helped immensely because when I first started, I didn't have any formal training, and so I didn't really know how to use the contact manager, and I was still learning. And then so when we implemented this in December, it helped a lot because everything was very clear of what we needed to do and what the next steps were, and outlined it, and keeping everybody on track.
Great. Thank you. Heidi, how about you? You were with the team before KMG started. Can you share maybe what you did, how this has changed things for you?
Aside from trying to dig through file after file of file on the server to see what report we were looking for, it was kind of this, look in the client server file, and if you're lucky, you find it in the right year or whatever data it is that you're looking for, whereas now I can just pretty much look at the BPT and I know, or at least for me, I live in that. Mm-hmm. So I have all my notes there, and I know, if nothing else, I at least know where to direct myself or another team member to go look to find something additional if it's not in there. But it was a, is it in SmartPad? Is it in the server file? Is it in an Excel file? And I just feel like now I can pretty much look in the tracker and find it that way a lot easier. It's a one-step as opposed to a five-step process.
One-stop shopping for tasks.
Oh yeah, yep. Well, I live in my BPT. In fact, I've got it open right now with probably 3 windows open.
Thank you. Stacy, you also transitioned from tracking things from memory and notes. I know we brought you in as our content expert for today, but you've mentioned a couple times Post-it notes. Is that how you kind of kept track of things, just paper notes, before you were introduced to Connect?
Oh yeah, Post-it queen here.
How else did you keep track of things?
I used to keep a mail, well, I don't know if this really pertains to BPT, but when I sent, instead of putting it on return mail, I put it on BPT for myself to follow up a lot of times. And I used to keep a mail log, a handwritten sheet of paper that I just kept in my desk of things that I mailed out to people. and would use that as my, my list of following up and stuff. But it's just so much easier having everything in one place, all of your tasks in one place, as opposed to 10 different ones.
A lot less paper.
Yes.
I would imagine your team spends a lot less on Post-it notes now.
They do.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Would anybody else like to share their experience before business processing? All right, another quick question for you. I'd like to know if any of you have added any kind of preference pieces to this tool. So Stacy is doing a great job of using those text tools, and she's working loosely in categories in the description field. Are there any other preference points that your team's using that we could share with the group? If anybody's got any of those, I'd love to know. All right, everybody's quiet today. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up and let you get back to your afternoon. I want to remind you that we will be standing by for questions. I will be here at my desk available for the next 15 minutes or so, my direct line. If you'd like to reach out to me about any part of this or any additional questions, you can reach me at 248-218-1274. Or feel free to shoot me a quick email. I'm Brandy with an I, .a.kelly, K-E-L-L-E-Y, @ampf.com. I never changed that. Many of you will give me a little bit of a ribbing for that. There will be a PDF follow-up that will come out in the next day or two with some takeaways from today. Be on the lookout for that. There'll be some resources, a good one-page review of what we've covered. And if you could hang in there for just a moment, there'll be a survey that appears as we close the webinar to give us a little bit of feedback on how we could continue to make this even more valuable for you in the future. And don't forget that you're each other's best resources. We're here for questions and to help get you going, but if there's somebody that you heard speak today that you'd like to reach out to, feel free to do that directly or work with us and we'll connect the two of you so that you can learn from each other. The more you share, the more we all learn.